"Allow me to introduce you to Noah." And this is her stuck in her car because her date literally texted her saying the place that they're going to only accepts cash. But she still goes to the diner on her first date with Chad. And he kept talking about how he loves hot sauce and how the women in their parents' generation just dressed better and Noah just looks pretty messy. At least that's what he was insinuating. And after they were done with their date and he was completely rude to the waitress, he asks Noah if she wants to do this again, and she politely says no, and then he acts like a jerk, calling her stuck up and other names that I will not be saying here. And she tells her best friend Molly about what happened while they were at gym practice. And Molly tells Noah that she doesn't need a man. And Noah is a little bit of a loner. She has her own apartment, she works from home, and all she does to meet someone is just go online and try to find matches on dating apps. And after texting with another jerk on the app, she decides to go grocery shopping. And at the supermarket, in the produce section, she meets this awkwardly funny guy called Steve. And they exchange numbers, and she's pretty surprised because he's good looking and he's funny, and it's hard to find that kind of thing in real life these days. And she tells Molly about it, and Molly is also surprised, especially because it was at a supermarket. And the fact that Steve took her number but still hasn't texted is kind of getting on her nerves. But just soon after she saw Molly, he texts her, and they meet up at this bar. And it's their first date, they're both excited, and they talk about the cliche things that people ask each other, like, what do you do? Steve tells her that he's a doctor, and he works in reconstructive surgery. They go back to her house, and they do it. And Noah looks pretty satisfied with what happened last night, so she takes a picture of Steve and she saves it on her phone. She even tells her best friend Molly about what happened, and Molly's happy for her. And she asks her for Steve's Instagram, and Noah tells her that he doesn't really use social media. And he seems to like Noah so much that he even stayed in her house the next day as well. And after making her dance to some funky music, Steve asks Noah to take her on this trip, like a surprise trip. And she agrees. And the next day before she leaves, she tells her best friend Molly. And Molly doesn't really like this idea. After all, Noah doesn't really know Steve that well, and Molly hasn't even seen him. And when she says this, Noah decides to send her the picture that she took of him the day before. And the picture isn't that clear, and Molly still hates the idea of them going away together, but Noah's very excited, so Molly just agrees and she tells her to go. And as she was packed up and ready to leave, Steve tells Noah that there's bad traffic and they have to stay at his place for tonight and leave tomorrow morning. And they drive to his place. It's this really nice house just secluded in the woods. And because the place was so remote, there's really no service and you can't really call anyone. And as soon as they get to his place, Steve makes Noah a drink and he makes her guess the flavor. She gets it right on the third guess. Apparently it was nectarine. But the more she drank, the more dizzy she got. And just as soon as she said nectarine, she passes out. And when she comes to, she finds herself tied up in this basement room. And at first, she thinks it's a joke, but when Steve puts on his serious face, she finds out that this is actually happening. He has you tied up in his basement. And she starts to freak out, and then she asks him, are you gonna do things to me? As in, are you gonna grape me? And he's like, no, of course not. I'm never gonna do something like that. I'm just gonna sell your meat. Yep, you heard me. He's going to sell her meat. And he also tells her that he's not gonna kill her. The fresher the meat, the better, so he's gonna try to keep her alive for as long as he can. So her friend Molly, who's freaking out because she doesn't really know where Noah is, starts texting her, but Steve texts her back saying that they're at this place called Cottage Grove and that it's great, but there's just really bad cell service, so she can't really call or text. And Molly believes it. And Noah, who's obviously freaking out, finds that there's somebody else across the room from her. She tells her that her name is Penny and that she doesn't really know how long she's been here. And Penny tells her that there's this other girl called Melissa, and she's right across from Penny too. And Melissa's kinda losing it. I mean, if a guy tricks you into his house and decides to cut your meat up, you're probably gonna lose your mind too. And Molly tries to text Noah in the morning again, but Steve again texts her back, pretending to be Noah, and he texts her by saying that she needs a break from her phone and she's gonna turn it off. And this makes Molly pretty suspicious because Noah's never really done that before. So she image searches the photo that she sent her yesterday, only to find that it's just some generic photo from the internet. And as Molly was growing more suspicious about Noah's well-being, we see Steve at his best, preparing the meat that he cut up the day before. And this time it's a leg and he's really having fun with it, cutting it up, packaging it, and sending it away to whoever it is that eats this kind of stuff. And afterwards, he goes to see how Noah's doing, and she tells him she needs to take a shower. And he unties her and asks her if she's gonna be good, and she's like, yeah, I'll be good. But as he was walking her down the corridor, she tries to escape, and he knocks her out, he puts her on the operating table, and he takes her ass. And as Noah was getting her butt surgically removed, her friend Molly was going around town trying to find out who Steve is. She goes to the bar that Noah and Steve went to, and she asks the bartender, cause she knows him, about Steve's credit card information. And of course that's a little illegal and he could lose his job, but she tells him to think about it and she tries to convince him as hard as she could. And does Noah freak out when she finds out that her butt is missing? A little bit, but now she's just in shock and she's taking pain pills for both the physical and the emotional pain that she's going through. And she also has someone to talk to, her cellmate, Penny. The other girl, Melissa, at this point has almost completely lost her mind. And as the days kept passing and Noah was trying to grow accustomed to a life without a butt, her friend Molly does her research and she finds out that Steve is married and he has like 2 kids. And after receiving the credit card information from the bartender and finding the house's location on Facebook, Molly goes to Steve's house and she knocks on the door and his wife opens it. But his wife, Anne, tells her that she doesn't know anybody called Steve. Her husband's name is Brandon. And just as she told her that and Molly was leaving, Brandon, or should I say Steve, comes to the house. And from the picture that Noah sent her while he was asleep, Molly can't really tell if it's him or not. So as he was walking her out, Molly calls Noah's number. And the phone rings in Steve's pocket. And he turns around slowly and he tells her, "You shouldn't have done that." And his wife Anne knocks out Molly from the back. Cause apparently, Steve and his wife Anne are doing this meat selling business together. And going back to his other house to do his job, Noah has intrigued Steve, asking him what it tastes like. So he bought her a dress and a bunch of other things, and he tells her that he wants to make her dinner. And also, even though Molly's kidnapped now and we don't know where she is yet, before she went to Steve's house, she sent Paul, the bartender, her location. You know, just in case if things go south and she disappears too. Smart girl. And Noah lets Steve make her dinner. And she tries to impress him and she eats whatever it is that he serves her. Of course, she pukes it out as soon as he takes her back to her room, but he grows more fond of her and he asks her to dinner again. And this time, he feeds her something very delicious and their date goes really well. They have dinner, they dance a little, and Noah takes him to the bedroom and she decides to sleep with him. And you're thinking, yeah, she's probably lost her mind now, but no, she bites his D off. And as he was screaming in agony, she hurries out of the room and she locks the door behind him. And she also takes his phone. She immediately rushes down to the basement, she opens the rooms, and there she finds her best friend Molly, and she also gets Penny. And as they were about to leave and they were rushing, Steve breaks the door, he finds them in the kitchen, they fight it out, he gives them a really hard time, but Molly finally knocks him out. And as soon as they make it out of the house, Steve wakes up and he follows them. And this time, he has a gun. And Noah, Penny, and Molly can't really run that fast because Penny doesn't have a leg. And as all this was taking place, Steve's wife, Anne, has made it to the house and she's figured out what's going on. And as the girls were hiding from Steve in the woods and he was shooting everywhere, Molly tackles him from the side, and as he was down, Noah gets there and she uses his gun to kill him. Finally. But even though he was dead, Noah, Molly, and Penny didn't know where they were or how to call for help. And as Noah was going through the woods, Anne, Steve's wife, finds her. And for a moment, she tries to trick her into thinking that Steve was using her, and she tries to choke Noah to death. Until Molly hits Anne over the head with a shovel and kills her. And that, boys and girls, is how the movie ends. Please support our channel, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. I love you guys so much. I will see you on the next recap. Bye!